Hi, I'm Kevin Closter, and I'm the District Superintendent for the Prairie Hills District of the Dakotas Conference of the United Methodist Church. And it is my privilege to be able to walk with you in this staff parish training around evaluation time. There comes moments in the life of the staff parish committee where we have to evaluate our pastor and our staff, and I'm just going to give you some tools to do that. First, let me talk about expectations. We all have expectations of our pastor, but they need to be based on the vision and the direction of the church. What are the goals the church has? And we base our expectations not on that, not on the preferences that we have. Sometimes we want our preacher, we expect our preacher to perhaps preach like Charles Stanley. And that's just not going to happen in most cases. We need to allow our pastors to be who they are, and we measure their performance based on expectations we have around the vision, the direction, and the goals of the church. So performance is evaluated based on that. And there's a couple of ways that we can do evaluation to measure sort of performance. One is called a formative feedback. And this type of feedback happens along the way when no decisions need to be made. This is just the day-to-day kinds of stuff where we're giving feedback to a pastor or a person on staff that helps them to improve, to develop, and to grow professionally. The success of the person is the purpose of this feedback. We want them to be the very best pastor or staff person they could possibly be. And so our feedback is intended to help them to grow. Participants become partners in the fruitfulness of the person receiving feedback. It is a great feeling when you know that you are helping to develop somebody to help them to be the very best person that God has designed them to be. And this kind of feedback helps identify early issues so that the person can address them. You know, if none of us are perfect, we all have our faults and our foibles, and this is an opportunity where we can gracefully and lovingly share with our pastor or our staff person, you know, here's some areas that we think you need to work on so that they don't become a big issue later on. And it helps to clarify what's working and what's not. Sometimes we're working in a certain direction and it's just not happening. And it may be that your pastor or layperson needs to give up something. Maybe they need to approach something in a different way. And so this kind of feedback helps them to figure out what's working and what's not. The formative evaluation can best be described as this. You're identifying what the strengths of your staff person or your clergy person are. You affirm and praise them. We think you're super great at preaching. You've got this nailed. We love how you do that. You may identify growth areas. You know, you're a great preacher, but one of the things that we'd like is to see more application. And then you can develop a performance plan that helps enhance that effectiveness. So you identify what some of those growth areas are, and then the pastor goes to work in some of those areas so that pastor or staff person can improve and develop and grow and become better at what they do. And this kind of feedback, it happens throughout the entire year. Every time you meet, you can be engaged in formative evaluation. Summative feedback is really sort of that annual review, and it looks at how well the staff person or the pastor is advancing the church's overall mission. This is the kind of evaluation that takes place in a formal way around annual reviews, continued employment, or setting salary and compensation. There's usually a record of these evaluations, whether it means progressive discipline, whether it means your pastor's doing a great job and we want our pastor to stay again, but there's some formal decision and that needs to be recorded. And the feedback deals with how well the person's doing advancing the church's mission or the mission of a specific ministry for which that person's responsible. So you're looking at performance and skills and how effective this person's been in their job. Progress on issues named in previous formative evaluations is discussed. So along the way, you've been talking about we need to improve in this area. And so at this time is where you really look to say, has there been significant improvement? And if so, we're willing to keep working forward. If there's not been significant improvement, maybe this is the time we let go and we move in a new direction. The purpose is to make decisions regarding how well suited a person is to the ministry needs of a particular church. Again, will our pastor continue? Will this staff person continue? And it leads to very specific action steps such as a church profile or in appointment review. So here's a suggested formula for this, and that's 90% of your evaluation ought to be formative and 10% summative. And the way that you know that you're doing this is that formative evaluation, that feedback should be taking place throughout the entire year. Every time an issue comes up, you're being honest and you're talking to your pastor or staff person about that, so that when you get to the summative evaluation, there's no surprises. Everything that is talked about at the summative evaluation has already been talked about along the way. Here in the Dakotas Conference, we use certain characteristics to define effective clergy. And just really quickly, let me run through these. We believe that effective clergy have a strong, articulate Wesleyan theology and they can preach well. We believe that they have maturity that's respected and that's respectful and humble and mature and coachable. We believe that effective clergy demonstrate adaptivity, creativity, and risk-taking. They're willing to step out of the box to try new things. That effective clergy have a joyful, engaging, faithful servant's heart. They just want to make a difference in people and love what they do. That they have an ability to motivate and equip and encourage lay people and give permission to engage in ministry. That they demonstrate a strong, spiritually disciplined prayer life. They spend time with the Lord each day. And that they have good self-care and respective boundaries. That is, they're taking their days off, their vacation days, they're spending time with their family. They're not working all of the time. That they're generous in their resources, their words, and their actions. That is, that they give of their time and their money and their talent to make a difference in the kingdom. That they take responsibility and they help others to take responsibility. They don't shift blame, but say, listen, this is my fault. I did this. They demonstrate a work ethic that's smart and kingdom-oriented. They use their time well. They demonstrate growth in worship. They produce disciples who are lifelong learners and evangelists. They produce mature, healthy leaders who can help make the vision of the church a reality. They produce missional churches and other new ministries that move the church beyond the four walls to reach new people for Christ. And they produce financial strength and viability within the local church. Every fall, there comes a time where we have to decide whether or not we want our pastor to return, and that's sort of our appointment review process. So let me share with you a little bit about how that works. In November, your staff parish committee will complete what's called the church profile. And if I click on this, it should take us to the conference webpage, dakotasumc.org. You click on resources, you come down to forms and resources, and you come down to where it says SPRC assessment. And you click here, and it opens up the SurveyMonkey where you just fill out a profile of your church. This is the summative work evaluation of your pastor, and then you make the decision towards the bottom as to whether or not you wish your pastor to return, and that happens in this area right here. Your committee information is here, and you click Done, and it gets sent in to your district superintendent, who will then review what it is that you've shared. Just quickly, there are no polls, there are no petitions, there are no straw votes taken. You don't survey your congregation to say, what do we think about our pastor? This is your job as members of the Staff Parish Relations Committee. You are in a better position than anybody else, so don't go do a survey monkey or take polls about whether or not your pastor should stay. In November, your pastor will complete their own profile, and that is sent to the district superintendent as well. Keep in mind that these forms are advisory only to the bishop and the cabinet. We want to hear what you are saying and thinking about your pastor, but the final decision about whether or not your pastor stays or moves lies with the cabinet of the Dakotas Conference. And all of these forms are to be completed in November and sent off to your district superintendent, and then we make decisions about whether or not your pastor will return based upon what you've shared with us. And in our next the next training session, we'll take a look at that appointment process to help you better understand how it works. So there you go. Happy evaluating, and thanks again for being a part of this great committee.